Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 48 of Generation GC. Keep Swingin' from Youth Authority. The song features Kellin Quinn of Sleeping with Sirens. And my guest this week is Tom Kunzman from 18th Addison. My name is Molly Hudelson, and I am your host. Last week, we talked about Silver Screen Romance from Cardiology. A few days ago, on our bonus episode, we talked about The Innocent by Goldfinger, featuring Good Charlotte and Mest, and next week we'll talk about a song from Generation RX. 18th Addison are a pop-rock duo from Ocean County, New Jersey, and you might recognize them because back on episode 7 we had the other half of 18th Addison and Tom's wife, Kate Kunzman, on the show to discuss The Outfield, also from Youth Authority. 18th Addison released the EP Old Blues Modern Love on Wiretap Records, and at the end of 2020 they released a cover of Fleetwood Mac's Dreams. Now, y'all, if you are listening to this episode on the day it comes out, Wednesday, January 20th, it is Inauguration Day, where Joe Biden becomes inaugurated as President of the United States. And it's, I'm not going to say that the fight for social justice is over. It's definitely not. It's important to keep educating ourselves and staying informed on racism and anti-Semitism and sexism and, the financial struggles that a lot of people are facing due to the current situation and how poorly in some situations our government has responded. I don't want to say we've won, everything's over now, but I feel a whole lot of relief right now, just knowing that we are not facing 4 more years of Trump. This is a really great step. I'm very glad it's happening. I'm incredibly relieved. And I'm going to keep staying informed as best I can and, in the little ways I can, helping to educate and inform and share relevant info with y'all in these intros. Finally, Generation GC stickers are on their way. The first batch of stickers was sent out. The second batch has been ordered. They look pretty much the same. They're a little bit, the glitter is going to look a little different, but they're going to look great. I'm very excited. And if you want stickers, there's 2 ways you can get them. Number 1, you can go to anchor.fm/generationgcpod and click support, and that helps me keep the show going. Anything that comes into the show through sponsorships or through supporters on Anchor, that goes right back into making the show the best it can be, whether that's ordering headphones or a laptop stand or different cables and adapters and chargers, all the little things I need to keep it going. Also helps me do things like order the stickers. Second, you can make a charitable donation. If you go to blacklivesmatters.card.co, which as always is linked in the show notes, they're going to list a lot of ways you can help and donate. So donate to any organization listed there. And then you're just going to send me a screenshot of either your support of the show on Anchor or your charitable donation, as well as your mailing address, and I will send you stickers. Pretty exciting. And the stickers will be sent out, as soon as they come in. Hopefully that's soon. Thank you all for listening and for your continued support and engagement of Generation GC. It's so, so incredible to me to see just not just how many people listen to the show, but how many people care and how many people will write to me on social media and message me when new episodes come out. I love that. So please stay in touch. Please reach out. Generation GC Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. GenerationGCPod@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and now on to episode 48.
So, Keep Swingin' is track 5 on Youth Authority, Good Charlotte's 2016 comeback album. It was also their 6th album overall. Track 4 was Life Can't Get Much Better. Track 6 is Reason to Stay. So you have this just pulling the punches right between 2 pretty sentimental and emotional tracks, kind of sandwiching it. It was not a single, but there is a music video. Not all songs with music videos are singles. The song features Kellin Quinn of Sleeping with Sirens, one of 2 collaborations on the record, the other being Reason to Stay, which features Simon Neil of, I think, Biffy Clyro. And yeah, Kellin has a great voice. He hits those high notes so well. He has such power. I feel like you so rarely hit those notes. It's so rare for a man to hit those notes and to have the power that he does versus just being completely airy falsetto. Have you been, like, outside of this song, are you a Sleeping with Sirens fan? Have you ever seen them live?
I've seen them live, I believe, once in passing. It was like a festival type of setting, I'm pretty sure. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say I'm a fan, as I haven't necessarily followed any of their trajectory or any of their records or anything. But yeah, I was aware that they were working closely with MDDN and with Benji and Joel, and those guys are, they really champion their artists. So I actually learned more about them through Benji and Joel.
Same.
Right. And as for his vocals, yeah, I agree. I mean, on that song, I think he brings a really interesting type of flavor to Good Charlotte on that. Actually, it was a very strange surprise. It almost feels inhuman with the way he hits that approach. I honestly haven't heard a voice that goes to that realm. I want to say probably since Craig Owens and Chiodos. Yeah, and he's another one. That guy is a powerhouse vocalist as well. But yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I had not ever really listened to Sleeping with Sirens, but when I was on Warped Tour, I just ended up seeing them live because they were on the whole tour.
Yeah, that might have been where I saw them.
Yeah, and it was just like, all right, I get this, just seeing them live and just hearing their live show and hearing how he can hit all those notes and his voice sounds that good live. I was like, all right, I get this. I get why the kids love this. Oh, yeah.
True consummate professional, that's for sure. You could see it in his demeanor. Stories I've heard of how he conducts himself with fans and on the road and things like that. He seems like the real deal. So it's really cool. I'm glad that they took notice of somebody like that in a time where, we're all witnessing some artists we grew up with and love are falling by the wayside due to their, negative actions and things like that, all the things that they would typically speak against. And, it is pretty funny to see that happen and to see one of the good guys be given a chance by some legitimate bona fide icons in music. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny to me on a related note, just as we talk about Sleeping with Sirens, so this song has been played live a few times, and what I have seen is that it's been played in Brussels, Budapest, and Berlin in 2017. There's a live video from the Brussels show on YouTube. It sounds very good. What's wild to me, though, is 2018, when Generation RX came out, I'm pretty sure Sleeping with Sirens was on that tour.
I think you're right.
And I don't think they played this song on that tour, even though Sleeping with Sirens was on that tour.
Yeah, it's almost begging for it to be in the set at that point, right? Right.
Other just relevant, fun information I found, relating, talking about Sleeping with Sirens and Good Charlotte, is that Kellin joined the band on stage at the APMEs in 2016 to sing Girls and Boys.
Right. I remember that.
They also had Anthony from Bayside singing, I think, the anthem. It was...
We love Anthony and 18th and Addison.
Oh, you do?
We do, yeah. We love Anthony and Bayside. They're awesome.
I have seen them live a few times, but it was years ago. But I interviewed Anthony in 2017. I interviewed one of their guitarists, I think Jack, in 2018, and then I interviewed Anthony again in 2019.
Awesome.
So I have talked to him a few times. I've never met him in person. It's been a while since I've seen them live, but
yeah. Especially now, right? 2020, nobody's doing anything live.
Well, right, that too.
We can't go anywhere.
This song is written by Benji and Joel Madden and John Feldman, who had produced the album. And Tom, you haven't heard this because it's not up yet, but listeners, just a few days ago, you heard us talking all about John Feldman when we did our bonus episode on The Innocent. So go back and listen to that if you haven't yet. Tom, before we dive into Keep Swingin', and there's so much to discuss with this one. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But before we dive too much into it, I want to help our guests get to know you. So listeners, Tom is one half of 18th and Addison, and the other half of 18th and Addison, and also his wife, Kate Kunzman, was on the show earlier this last year, because this will be in 2021. Kate was on the show last year talking about the outfield. But Tom, I want to hear like your perspective. So when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and what were your first thoughts on them?
I want to say I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
I was hanging out with my best friend, and at the time, him and I were just avid Blink-182, Green Day, anything that felt similar. Of course, all the bands that they introduced us to, Screeching Weasel, The Descendants, Rancid, everything like that. And I'm trying to remember, I believe it was Emancipation Proclamation was on TV at one point.
Motivation Proclamation?
Motivation, yeah. Did I say Emancipation?
You did.
Look at me. I'm trying to give a history lesson, actually. I'm here for history.
Right. Easy
United
mix-up.
States, yes. Changing the topic to the United States. Yeah, Motivation Proclamation, yeah. I think it was the video for that I saw, and I remember just being so obsessed with the chorus of it. And it kind of just, I was just sort of in a spot where I was like, you know what, like that really reminds me of me and my friends right now, more so than, even more so than Green Day and Blink did, because they were so massive by that point. And Good Charlotte was like, nobody in my school was familiar with them yet. And I remember me and my best friend were just hooked. And, next thing you know, it's around the time Young and Hopeless was on its way out, and it was about to be available, and we were just, oh my god, we got to get that CD, we got to get that for Christmas. And did you see the guitars they're using and all that stuff? And yeah, it was just really cool. They were just kind of they looked how we wanted to look, they played the gear we wanted to be playing on, and they were pretty much sporting the same, or championing, I should say, the same bands that we were. It was almost like it felt like friends of ours, or like our next door neighbor was really doing it. And it was a really big moment for us. In that point, we kind of felt like we had our first band that we discovered before everyone else in our school did.
It's such a cool feeling to have that feeling, and to be right, like to have the band go on to be really big.
Yes, that's happened to me on numerous occasions now. I
Ooh, bragging.
I vividly remember being in my dad's car once and listening to, it was My Chemical Romance, actually, and I was like, man, like this is I would love to start bringing this type of sound. At the time, I was already in a band with some other friends, and I was like, I would love to start implementing this type of sound. It's just so fun and kind of crazy sounding and a little dark. It was really interesting. And I remember my dad was like, why do you want to sound like these bands that like aren't going to last? And all of them have lasted. It's so great. Good Charlotte, MCR, you name it. It's been awesome. It is a great feeling.
Yeah. And MCR is another New Jersey band. So did you grow up in New Jersey?
Yeah. I've been here, pretty much lived here my whole life. And besides, obviously like traveling and just kind of being on the road for X amount of days. But yeah, for the most part, this is the longest I've actually spent time in New Jersey since.
Oh my God, isn't it depressing?
Yeah.
I'm not in New Jersey anymore, but the longest I haven't traveled.
Yeah, that's kind of really the downside. It's like the longest we've had to be home in, I think, for me personally at least, since I was probably about 17 years old. So it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, but yeah, always been here. So
were you involved in like the local scene growing up?
Yeah, I was kind of, we had a funny situation in the area we live in. Nothing was too specific. It was for the most part, pretty open-minded. Some of the scene that I was more active in at the time when I first started to get introduced to this was like when, everybody was kind of getting introduced to more heavier music, like more like death metal and metalcore type stuff. Again, go back to Chiodos. Chiodos was a big band for everybody. Underoath, things like that were really starting to take over for friends of mine, and just sort of the music we started getting interested in playing. And every now and then you would get a nice like multi-genre show, which are actually my favorites, because I like when, you know, multiple bands of different styles can play together. I don't want to see the same sounding band 4 times in a row, so
well, and then it's like
anyone else to.
If shows are like segregated by genre, then you just end up seeing the same bands every time.
Yeah, and that started to happen for a little while, and you know, that we started to see the entrance of, or I should say maybe the resurgence and interest in more pop punk, pop rock, and, you know, all of a sudden the guys that would have made fun of me for saying that I loved Good Charlotte were now claiming that Good Charlotte was their favorite band all along.
It's so weird, isn't it?
I know.
Like how, I mean, that's a lot, that relates a lot to, you know, a lot of the topics we'll go into, but.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. It's convenience in a sense, or whatever, and whatever the popular opinion is, even though, you know, local music scenes are my idea of going into them was that it was to create your own world, to create your own place, like, you know, a place where everybody was kind of accepted. And in a lot of ways, the local scene felt like high school, felt very segregated. It felt very cliquey. And, you know, by the time 18th and Addison had started, and I, you know, I was coming home from tours in my previous band, I intentionally kind of started to just take myself out of that realm and just focusing on just doing my own thing, and Kate and I doing our own thing, and just putting music first, and not caring about a scene, not thinking about, you know, this whole community thing. We just kind of figured if we did something that was more, you know, strong enough and passionate enough, the world would come around to us. And it did, for the most part, locally. And, you know, we had a good time with it, and we still do as time has gone on. We just do our own thing. And, you know, that's something I think is probably a big direct influence from the guys in Good Charlotte. They were always fearless, did their own thing. Yeah. You know, so.
It's, I've had so many like conflicting, you know, not being a musician, but, you know, doing everything that I've done within music. Right. I've definitely had a lot of like kind of conflicting feelings on like local scenes, because on the one hand, I have just met a lot of friends, both people that are fans at shows, people that are in bands, people that are other like photographers and such. But sometimes it can be very cliquey, and it can be like, oh, well, you have to do what's best for the scene, even though it's not best for you. And
exactly,
is what's best for the scene also going to like help your career in the long run? Right.
It becomes a thing sometimes where, you know, people want to support you if it benefits them. Yeah. But this, you know, it's just it's a funny thing. You start to realize, I think every band goes through it, as you know, it depends, because it's so subjective. The term success is so subjective. So what your band could be doing seems like something that level it equals their idea of success, and it brings jealousy. That's when you start to kind of notice, you start to be kind of taken out, even though you're just doing your own thing and just enjoying it. And, you know, like Good Charlotte has, you know, they've just always enjoyed it regardless of what people might have said or thought about them amongst their peers and fans and stuff like that. And you do pick up on it very quick, and you can kind of read the room, hopefully. And, you know, it's hard to sometimes ignore it, but at the same time, because, you know, it does kind of upset you, because it's your life. If you're passionate enough about it, it does hurt. But then at the same time, we're all cursed with this, like, I don't care, but I care.
Yeah.
So we,
and I don't care, and I have to tell you how much I don't care.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't want to wave that like anarchy flag. I just want to like kind of let you know, like, that we're just doing our own thing. That's your fault if it upsets you that you're not a part of it. But, you know, be a part of it from the beginning when it's nothing, you know, be genuine. If I think if everybody in the local scene was more genuine and not expecting things from everyone else, I think it would be a lot more like it was when Green Day was coming up, and when Blink-182 was coming up, and Rancid, you know, because those guys are still very tight with everyone they came up with. And that's something I envy, because that community doesn't exist. And I know people try to make it exist, but if it's not genuine and you have to push really hard for community, I don't think it's, you know, it becomes forced, and then you know, the true colors start to show eventually.
That's a good point. Yeah. You talked a little bit about it, but I would just love to hear more, like how Good Charlotte has influenced you as a musician.
Yeah. So like I said before, you know, when they came up, it was really interesting. It was at the time everybody in every punk rock, pop punk, I guess, was before pop punk was even really being thrown around as a term. You know, they were all kind of playing, if you remember, like in those videos, like the seafoam green guitars with the white pick guards.
Always the
like
seafoam green. Always the seafoam green. I don't know what made that like the color.
I don't know either, but I got bit by that bug, and I remember I had to have a seafoam green Stratocaster.
Obviously.
Yeah, I had to have one. I felt like, and my best friend Dominic was playing drums. He wanted the exact same kit that he was seeing his favorite drummers play, which was commonly the OCDP kits at that point. But we made do with what we could possibly get at such a young age and trying to start a band. And I remember specific conversations as little kids. You know, him and I would be like, you know, at first before he was playing drums, I had him singing because I was too shy to sing. So I was like, no, I'm going to be like Benji. You're going to be Joel, you know, like things like that. Like, cause you're like 11, 12 years old. You're just trying to find out who you are, you know? And, they just kind of, for us, they inspired us to really just try writing music and writing stuff that we wanted to hear and things that we were going through, because they were singing about a lot of the things that we were starting to go through.
Yeah.
And, we wrote a bunch of really bad songs, of course, because we were like 11. It was a bunch of vengeful songs like, man, who hurt you at like,
right.
like in 6th grade. And things like that, songs about like skateboarding, you know, stuff you would hear bands like that, MXPX and so on, we're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
And that was literally what we were. So, you know, we jumped on that. And yeah, they were kind of spearheading that for us, along with, of course, Blink and Green Day and MXPX again, you know, of course. So
yeah. So the most recent thing in the 18th and Addison world seems to be this cover of Fleetwood Mac's Dreams. Excellent cover. I mean, Kate sounds, you're welcome. Kate sounds so good on it. So I have to ask, did this come about before or after that one TikTok?
The idea did. Kate had the idea prior. I don't know what got her on a kick about that song, but she was just like, kept on bringing it up. And to be honest, I wasn't really too excited to do it at first. And I was just like, I don't know. I never really got too into that song or Fleetwood Mac. I'm not really sure how we can make this, you know, our own and, you know, do it in a new kind of way. Yeah. Within that time, I had started releasing music with another project I'm doing with a friend of ours called and it's called Black Mansions. And of course in 2020, you know, we do everything for that project in a home studio, so it's safe, it's a little bit easier, everybody's comfortable with this whole virus thing going on, so don't have to go too far to do it, kind of deal. And we just sort of were like, you know what, like, why don't we really try something different? Let's self-produce this in a home studio. Like, we've never done that for 18th and Addison and released it. And so when we figured out that there was a cool way to kind of, you know, put our own flair on it, I got excited, you know, but it just took a very long time to organize and work out because of everything going on in the world today. And of course, as we're planning, that video went viral, and then it was just like, wow, cool. Okay, well, I guess that's good. We should definitely try and do it soon, especially if
capitalize on the moment.
And if people are discovering it and enjoying it, why not? I mean, you know, at the moment we're just writing so much original stuff, and it's not the easiest thing for us to get in the studio right now, because for 18th and Addison, we do like to be in a big studio and do things that way. It just, to us, it just works for that project. And so with Dreams, you know, we were like, let's do this a little bit different. Let's make it different from what 18th and Addison would normally do and normally sound like. I mean, this is the time to experiment. And, you know, we found a way to kind of make the song ours. And yeah, we had a blast with it. It was really, really fun to do.
I love it. Yeah. And I hopefully you're welcome. And hopefully people have been picking up on it. And I hope they continue to pick up on it.
Me too.
One question, actually, wait, didn't Kate do a video like ripping that one TikTok?
Yeah, so
I feel like I saw that.
yeah, so if you go on if you head to our TikTok, we did a quick little video for it because of course you weren't gonna go all out and make a whole
Right.
2-3 minute video riding our longboards around. So we were like, you know what, like that video is funny, but how can we make it more us? And yeah, so Kate, for anyone who doesn't follow Kate on Instagram or see anything that we post, she has a really awful habit and obsession with Coca-Cola. And so we threw her on a longboard drinking out of a 2-liter bottle, and I have a really bad habit with coffee and decided the coffee might taste better if I just poured it all over myself. And yeah, so we did. The neighbors were looking at us like, what are you doing? It was really fun though, and it made for a pretty funny video.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I'll have to like share it when I tweet about this episode. Awesome. And then just last question I want to ask before we do our deep dive. Have you ever seen Good Charlotte live?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Unfortunately, just once. Because every other time that they were around when I was a kid, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to go. But yeah, I finally got my chance during the Youth Authority run, and yeah, we got to hang with them for a little bit, and they were so cool, very friendly, and interested in music, talking music and things like that. And it just made for a really great first experience seeing them. Like the little 12-year-old in me was in shock. So it was cool. It was a good time.
It's
they're so good live too.
They are, and I feel like, I had seen them for the first time when I was 13, but right. I will say that for the bands that I had to wait like so long to see, when you have to wait so long to see a band and they're so good, it's like the most gratifying feeling. It's like, the waiting paid off.
For sure. And we were standing near Paul, and man, like you can hear it on the records, of course, if you listen as obsessively as I do to literally every detail on a record. But it's a crazy thing how underrated he is as a bass player. I wish he was mentioned more in conversation, because watching him and hearing the things that he does in these songs and the way he changes them live, even, it's like, man, as if it wasn't already awesome, he just made it even better. And super underrated, very talented bass player. The whole band, really. Benji and Joel in the songwriting department. You got Billy and Paul on bass and their guitar work, and just the creative sounds they come up with. Man, it's so awesome.
Yeah, and Dean on drums.
We love Dean. Yeah, he's a fun one to watch too. He's just a machine, that guy.
Oh my God, he really is.
Unreal.
So let's talk about Keep Swingin'. So, I had connected with Kate, way back, like right when I started the podcast. And I'm so glad that I get to have you on as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So why did you want to talk about Keep Swingin'?
Yeah, it's just a song that caught my ear very early on. I think it's I'm kind of a sucker for drum intros on stuff.
Yeah.
And again, back to Dean, the guy he's been one of my top favorite drummers, I want to say, since I first really heard him playing on the Used album Lives for the Liars. And what he brings to Good Charlotte is just so interesting. It's so tight, it's so powerhouse, and I just that is so fun and catchy, and it's a real fun beat to play along to as well. So that caught my attention first, and then lyrically it caught my attention because I'm always interested in what they have to say, the way they deliver the chorus, everything. It was just, I think it's a really well written song, and it's also one that I don't think is discussed enough. So
yeah, it's really
now
not.
We get to do it.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's start discussing.
Yeah.
What do you think the song means? I think we have so much to dive into with the topics of the song, but what is, like, aside from what the band may have said or anything, like, what's your personal interpretation?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't totally aware until I got in touch with you exactly that they were commenting on it. I'm glad that they did. To me, it was just sort of a really awesome sort. They've kind of always been this band anyway, but they were finally like saying it You know, like it's just, they're just sort of like that big middle finger band, and they might not seem like it or feel like it to everybody, but to me they do. And with this song, it's just so like, you know, I relate to it heavily because, you know, with music, I never want to just do one thing. I like to experiment and change styles and things like that. And, you know, that's another big thing that they had an influence on me on when I was a kid. So seeing them kind of do that and now talk about it and sort of address some of the hate they might have gotten for being a little different, for being a little more polished and you know, like whatever you want to call it. I'm glad they finally said something about it, you know, and wrote a cool song like, hey, we're still here and we're not going anywhere. And there's something behind that determination. It's extremely inspiring. So that, and of course, you know, the feature, I love when rock bands, I'll say rock just because, you know, to avoid the is it punk or pop punk, you know, like to me it just falls under that world. And that song is a very straightforward one. And you know, having a feature is always so cool to me. It doesn't happen very often. It happens a lot in pop and hip hop, but in rock music, the door isn't always open to a feature. So the fact that they did it now, probably, I could be wrong, probably since the first time they did the collab on with the guys from Avenged Sevenfold. That was a while ago.
Yeah, so Good Morning Revival, they had The River. Cardiology, they didn't have any. And The River was like, I mean, I guess technically they had some guest vocals on Motivation and Proclamation, but The River was the first like big collab.
Yeah, they were credited, like you knew it was them.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there were any collabs on Cardiology. And then that brings us to Youth Authority. So
and you know, of course, too, being aware of how they work with Sleeping with Sirens and things like that. I just saw that as really cool and down to earth to you know, to kind of for them to not only just bring in a new interesting voice to a song, but
someone
like
they've worked with so closely.
Yeah, really putting up their friends and things like that. And they've always been about that since like those TRL days, wearing like their friends' bands tees, and you know, again, introducing me and my friends to all our now favorite artists because of them. Otherwise, how else would an 11-year-old know about that, you know? So yeah, that's just all encompassing, that song. It's really inspiring one. Yeah,
I think it's about just that determination they've always had to keep going. I think, you know, specifically, I think they're talking about people accusing them of selling out or changing, but what I get out of this song is that they don't really have a response to that, so they just kind of laugh it off and move along and keep doing what they do. And
that's really all you should do.
Yeah, you know, I think they've realized it's not worth clapping back to someone's face. And maybe other artists will sell their souls, right, and not go after what they want, but now they're just like, whatever, like what we do was really special and we just want to like focus on doing what we do, and we're going to keep doing that and like F anyone else.
Yeah, definitely. And then they do it in their way of doing it, you know, like there's no blatant, you know, calling out or anything. And they definitely kind of decorate the message with some good storytelling and a little bit of metaphor and things like that. But also if you dig a little deeper, it's still a very literal topic, you know, so it's cool how they did it. And I mean, I agree with, if that's, I get that same vibe. I feel like if that is 100% exactly what they are trying to get at, I think they did it perfectly. And, you know, they handle it really well too, because you got to realize at a certain point, you know, you see some artists all the time, they're constantly crying about what a fan says that might be negative. And it's like, yeah, but you're still here. You're still doing it. Just really just focus and be thankful for, you know, the people that, you know, really support you and aren't just saying negative things on Twitter to get you to respond, you know, respond more to the kind tweets and things like that. 'Cause, you know, you'll get that back tenfold.
Yeah. And like for all of their, you know, dedicated fans, Good Charlotte has had plenty of negative comments, like from the press, but also like I'm sure you remember absolutepunk.net. Like, whenever they would post about Good Charlotte, whoo, boy, those comment sections, you know?
Of course.
Chorus.fm is like a little tamer, but Absolute Punk was just nasty.
Yeah.
And you know, YouTube comments and comments on, we'll often read the comments on songmeanings.com, because in like around the time of the first few albums that was really popular, people would be like fighting over like how much they hated the songs.
Oh, so crazy. But
I feel like you know, you never heard Good Charlotte like complain about it. Like,
no, they were doing what they wanted. I mean, they're a band that wanted to make music. They wanted to make money. They wanted to care for their families and build an empire. They wanted to do it all. They've done it all. They've literally manifested everything that they've said in their lyrics since the first record.
Exactly.
You know, they got to do it all, and they still continue to do it all. And, you know, what's the sense? There are artists who are in their shoes as well that still focus on the negative, and it's sort of kind of like, you know, what's the point? I mean, we've had our fair share of that as well, and people trying to compare Kate and I as if, you know, we're the same person and it's supposed to be identical, not acknowledging that this is two totally different people doing one project together. And, you know, I used to get bothered by some of the things in the beginning. And then, you know, when you kind of do your research and do your digging, you realize most people that are just trying to kind of project this hate and misery on a band and their fans and them as individuals. They're just miserable people themselves.
It's exactly what I was going to say. They're miserable people themselves. They have no joy in their own lives. Yeah.
Yeah. You see them and then you're like, man, this is the guy with the negative review. Like, never mind. I don't care about any review now. You know, it's like, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. I don't care what any publication has to say. And I think they must have gotten so adjusted to that very quickly because it did hit them very hard. I remember seeing nothing but negative news about them, and I'm like, man, they're the coolest guys. Their music's fun. Like, you know, calm down.
Right. Yeah, it's I don't know. Like, I imagine it affects you, of course. Like, if you're even rating a song like this, it has affected you. But like, there's a difference between like, you have a feeling and emotion that is like a reaction to something that happened or something someone said versus letting it change what you're doing, you know?
Right.
Anyone who does anything creative and like puts it out into the world, you're going to get feedback. It's not all going to be nice.
For sure.
But it's like, do you let that change what you're doing or not, you know?
Exactly. And the ones that do totally let it change, and not in the sense of improvement, but in the sense of you know, I want to be accepted.
Right.
That's when things get a little bit different. They start to get a little ugly.
Which is and on that note, I want to talk specifically about selling out, because that's I think relevant, because it's like, if you want to, you know, you try to be accepted and then it's like, oh, are you good now or are you a sellout? So we're going to read the dictionary.com and the Urban Dictionary, some Urban Dictionary definitions. And we'll kind of gloss over like a couple articles I saw on selling out. So dictionary.com defines sellout informally as a person who betrays a cause, organization, or the like, a traitor, or a person who compromises his or her personal values, integrity, talent, or the like for money or personal advancement. If you go on Urban Dictionary, the second definition, this was like a knife in my stomach. The second definition and you see the screenshot, Tom, the second definition of sold out on UrbanDictionary.com says, when crappy bands choose to sign to a major label and further ruin their music, rarely is this a good thing. And the example just says Good Charlotte, man, they sold out. Wow. Funny example, because Good Charlotte has been on a major label since their first record. So that definition could use a little nuance, but
yeah, I mean, the guy who put that on there, guy or girl that wrote that, is probably wearing a Ramones shirt, who was also on a major label.
Right, or like a Sex Pistols shirt, who is
also on two major labels.
Right.
And created to be on one. Yes, exactly. Right.
So this is a question, because we have more to like kind of chat about.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to this later, so we don't have to give a final answer, but ponder this question: did Good Charlotte sell out?
Okay.
Yeah.
I will ponder it. I think I have my answer already, but I will let it simmer for a bit.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through some highlights regarding Good Charlotte and Selling Out. And oh my god, finding like all of these references specifically just brought back so many awful flashbacks. Because like you, I felt like for so many years all I saw was negative stuff about them.
Yeah.
If you go to the Urban Dictionary definition for Good Charlotte, it's, oh god, a talentless poser band that tries to make everyone think they are punk when they are definitely not. This band has no talent and plays nothing but formulaic, cliche, pop-tart music. The average age group of listeners is 14. Anyone older than that who likes Good Charlotte is just a dumb fuck preppy who is too stupid to find real music to listen to. Good Charlotte is not punk. Good Charlotte, along with Avril Lavigne, have tarnished the punk image with their conformist pop R-word.
There it is in itself. Punk image.
Right. Right. And even what's funny is they mentioned Avril, and like I was going through a big Avril kick a couple months ago. And you kind of like, you read about her and she was never per se trying to be punk. Like that wasn't necessarily what she was trying to do, even if that's kind of how the first album ended up.
Right.
So it's kind of funny that she gets mentioned as like tarnishing the punk image. Like, okay.
Yeah. It's again, people just looking for anything and everything to complain about and, you know, be miserable over. And then as they probably grow up, or if they already are grown up, you know, they find later, it's like, oh, this stuff's actually not so bad. You know, you know, they have Skater Boy stuck in their head and they won't admit it.
Oh, exactly. The Blue and Gray Press had an article called Good Charlotte, more like Irrelevant Charlotte.
Ooh.
So we're just going to read a snippet from this article. Chronicles of Life and Death in 2004 attempted a more adult music style with songs about dying, and Good Morning Revival in 2007 tried to get us to dance to awkward techno rock. True. Both of those sentences are true. Both were epic failures. Their fan base of MTV Generation high school girls who were already sold on their pop punk were forced to buy slop junk. But at last, with Cardiology, you'd think that they'd be due for at least one good album free from sellout pop rock hits. Well, sellout pop rock is their calling card, so let's try that again. Good Charlotte is at least due for an album that accomplishes their sellout pop rock style while not being overly asinine.
Ugh.
I'm just kind of trying to see what they're getting at. You know what I mean? Like they're saying it's sellout music, but that also the albums were failures. So like,
so
wouldn't something that sold out be like good? Yeah, like maybe too polished for your taste, but wouldn't it be good? I would
assume that your argument means sold out would basically would mean that they were a shoo-in for success,
right?
And that's never the case anyway.
No.
And honestly, it's so funny. I think that all that stuff makes me laugh with how people try to portray something and how they view it, and if you're this age and like this, you're an idiot. And it's like, man, you couldn't be more pompous and just so incorrect. You know, it's not like that at all. Music is music, and it's good, and you know, it's good or it's not, and that's it. It's all preference. You know, music is supposed to be subjective. Art is supposed to be subjective. If we all felt the same exact way, it would be the most boring conversation ever.
There would be no point in me doing this podcast if everyone felt the same way. Like,
right? Oh my God, everybody would do the same interview about the same song.
Yeah.
So and just to imagine that, how boring you would get, how bored you would be doing your own show, having to talk about the same thing. You know, you would be like, I'm done.
Right. I would have quit after like 3 episodes.
Yeah. You're like, I can't do this for another 20 episodes talking about the same exact thing. So it's just, I think people, it's a lot of people who just, you know, they've got a lot of time on their hands and nothing positive to focus their own energy on, you know, instead of, you know, sitting there and trying to disparage somebody's career and their music and their fan base and other people for liking it. It's like, and I experienced that a lot
growing up in the town I grew up in. I heard it all the time just because I owned a level 27 shirt.
Yeah.
And
I would hear it.
just
I
sort
would
of
hear
move
it
on.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
It was also weird because I remember hearing that wearing like my GC hoodie when I was 13 years old. Still the only GC hoodie I ever owned. I need another GC hoodie. But it was like, you're 13 years old. What authority do you have on this matter?
Right, exactly.
Like, who are you parroting? You know, because literally, like, what authority do you have on this matter?
Yeah, and honestly, like if a 13-year-old wants to wear it, if a 13-year-old wants to wear a 5 Seconds of Summer shirt and they think that they're punk for it, okay,
Yeah.
like I'm happy you're listening to them, because instead of tearing these people apart, you should be happy at the fact that because of Good Charlotte, your favorite punk rock band is now a known name in that kid's household, right? Like, don't you want your favorite bands to last? Because those are the same people that'll complain when the time finally comes that Rancid doesn't do another record, which will never happen to Rancid, but just as an example, because they just are always going. But, they do take a little bit more time to put out records now. And I hear people constantly
because of course they take their time.
Because they can, and now they can make, they can do whatever they want, and they can work with other artists if they want, which, from experience is a lot of fun. So I get it. And some people don't necessarily get it, but I do know people who have complained about the fact that Rancid hasn't released a record in the timely fashion that they would like. But at the same time, I'm like, well, you also fight very hard to make sure that nobody else listens to them but you, and they can't make records if you're the only fan, and everyone else that got there because of Good Charlotte you made fun of, and now they don't want to be there, because now they
don't feel welcomed.
Yeah, and that's just not cool. And that's where Good Charlotte's staying power really, to me, where it truly comes from, is you are welcome, and it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter what band shirt you have on, and it doesn't matter if you're wearing a Good Charlotte shirt and never listened to them before. They are just honored that you're there.
Yeah, can we just say PSA, F off with if you're gonna wear a band shirt, you should be able to name at least 3 songs.
Exactly. Nope. The bands don't care.
No, the bands don't care. I've bought I bought plenty of band shirts from like local bands or like DIY touring bands. I had no idea of their music, but like I was at a show, it was a cool shirt, and I wanted to support a touring artist that could absolutely use my $15-$20.
Right. And even if it's a Metallica shirt, they don't care that you don't know their songs, because as soon as you post that picture wearing that shirt, there's going to be a kid like us that will see that picture and go, oh, that's an interesting shirt. That kind of like, they might be a heavier band, let me check that out. And then you find out that Metallica is the root of inspiration for all your current favorite metal bands. Then you're going to change your way of thinking a little bit. And it always kind of comes down to that, I think. I noticed a lot of people turned around on Good Charlotte, back to being like, oh, I was a fan all along, when social media started to really kick in.
Yes.
And photos to go back to Rancid, of Tim Armstrong hanging out with Benji and Joel, or Benji is in the Fall Back Down music video.
Mm-hmm.
Now
that was how I got into Rancid, was like learning Benji was in that video.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I'm sure there's plenty of Rancid fans who probably shit on Good Charlotte fans.
I'm sure.
We're now like, oh yeah, I always knew he was cool, but it's like, shut up, dude. Like, no, it's like, just enjoy the music. You like it. It's okay.
Yeah, you don't need to like justify it. You don't need to show off, whatever, that you're more punk.
Exactly, because you weren't there in the UK in 1977, and even if you did talk to Johnny Rotten, he'll call himself a pop star. He'll call himself, they'll be like, oh, he's like, it was just a costume. Because I remember an interview with Johnny Rotten, and someone was asking him about acting, and they were like, isn't that like the anti what you're about, like dressing up in a costume and doing this thing? He goes,
and he was like, no, this is
he goes, it's all dress up, isn't it? He goes, we're just having a good time and doing what we want. And he was just like, stop trying to give it a name, because that's the most, and I love that, arguably the king of it all, the guy who really spearheaded the whole movement in the beginning, was the guys to say that. And, you know, cause of course, you know, and I grew up heavily influenced by punk rock. Like that's like probably my number one still to this day. And, it's never just the music to me. It's always it's always what you're saying. It's the mentality. I mean, there's punk rock and hip hop to me. There's punk rock and reggae to me. You know, if you truly understand it, you can find it in anything. And Good Charlotte, without a doubt, their approach, their fearlessness to do whatever the hell they want, like that is as punk as you can be. Like what's more punk in that moment than to be the poppiest band on MTV with guitars on that have a mess sticker on it. So,
right.
You know, so that's really it, I think, you know. So it's either that or, you know, for the rest of their lives, they just constantly dress up and do mohawks, even if they don't like them. Then you want to talk about
right. And then
out.
people say, oh, well, you're still dressing the same. You're still making the same music and it's boring. Like,
yeah. But at the end of the day, apparently artists and bands are not allowed to grow and change like normal people do.
But they also can't sound too much the same. Like,
no, we're not allowed to progress, but we're also not allowed to stay the same. So it's like, you know, that's why I imagine trying to live up to what everyone else's opinion of you is. It's impossible and it's stressful. Like there's no sense in it. Good Charlotte doesn't bite. And I think that's, to me, that is punk rock. You know, they're not buying into it. They do their thing. They do it their way. And they're still here. Bottom line, they're still here.
So 2 more headlines to mention. Akali.com just had an article called Lifestyle to the Sellouts and Posers, specifically, which props on the title, honestly. But it was funny. Specifically regarding an anti-piracy ad and like saying that they were like sellouts for doing an ad. Right. And it was just very funny because, like, I don't know how much you paid attention to this discourse, but, like, do you remember the whole thing when, like, Taylor Swift's albums weren't on Spotify, and it was a whole thing of, like, hey, Spotify, you should pay more money to artists. And, you know, still Spotify, I think, does not pay artists what they are worth at all.
Not at all. And they're in the process of making it worse.
Yeah. But you know, she tried to use her position for good, you know, like she may or may not be able to make the change. And it kind of seems like that's kind of what Good Charlotte was doing with this ad, was like, hey, don't pirate. Like that hurts bands. And like, if Good Charlotte says that, maybe that'll help a smaller band.
Right. And the article is arguing that?
Yeah, the article is saying that Good Charlotte is sellouts for doing the ad. It was very odd.
Oh my. Yeah, that makes zero sense. Crazy.
Yeah, there was a whole Yahoo Answers discussion. Just did Good Charlotte sell out? And that's just funny because I feel like those type of sites, people ask a question expecting like expert advice, and like nobody that's answering your question on Yahoo Answers is like any kind of expert, you know?
No.
But
it's all opinions.
Right. Let's get to what the Madden brothers have actually said about selling out. So we recently had Maria Sherman on the show, so it's nice to be referencing one of her articles for Rolling Stone that was not long after the hiatus. And here's a little clip from that article. At their core, Good Charlotte is a punk band. The genre is inherently opposed to the evils of selling out, but that never concerned the brothers. We didn't have money and we wanted it, Joel retorts. A lot of street punk bands came from rich families. They run away for the summer. I'm not dissing that because I get it. We all have our pain that we're running from. We had more of a hip-hop mentality because we came from poverty. That was a real connection. I always thought that was the American dream. Everyone wants to have a dream and get rich from it. Benji continues, the American dream. I believe in that cliche because I know what having nothing feels like. Yeah. I mean, we didn't have money and we wanted it. Like that. Yeah. They were never shy about it, I don't think, you know?
Never. And
we'll be self-made millionaires.
Yeah, and you're going to be mad at them for that. I mean, it's just, again, it's stuff that these people complain about because they don't want to work for it like they did. And, I mean, you don't give rappers shit for bragging about how much money they made off one record, and every music video was in like these gorgeous, extremely expensive cars, and
even if the rapper is not making the kind of money where they could afford that stuff, always the music videos show that lifestyle.
Exactly, but like, where's the conversation about that? Whoever artist who's pretending that that's their situation, where's calling that guy a sellout? Where's calling that guy a poser? There's not, and it's just because almost like people expect it from hip hop and rap, but
like punk is supposed to be genuine, and you're supposed to just do it for the art.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so funny. People, they want that, but then they complain if a band that the people that complained, they made it sure that the band did not grow anywhere past their friend group, and then they're upset that they never made another record. It's like, well, of course they didn't, because you're not allowing them to grow. So quit keeping them back, support them, allow them to achieve their dreams so that they can remain motivated. And there's this stigma that when bands do start to make big money off of their dreams and what they work for, that their music apparently gets worse. And that's not the case. It's just sometimes when you are in a heavy workflow of touring and writing and recording, and then another tour, and then another writing session, and then another recording session, it's like any other human being. Our brains start to kind of run short of ideas, and they get tired, and motivation starts to sort of go out the window, and it gets a little scary at times, but the artist wants to provide music, and so they do. And it might not be always the best work ever, but of course that's always subjective. But it's motivate them by being there, by being supportive, and you'll get that in return. You'll get great music back if you kind of just allow it. But there's a stigma in punk and in rock where the fans, and some of the artists also included, don't want the genres to expand past what it's supposed to be to them.
Right, like they want bands to be as big as they can, but you can't like be on mainstream radio.
Yeah, you can do well, you just can't do better than it's a mentality of that. It's like, I want you to do well, but not better than me. And
right.
That's so counterproductive, and it's harmful to music. It's harmful to the growth of music. But then, those same people will complain about how country and hip hop is the leading two genres in the world. It's like, well, because rappers want to work with guys in rock and roll. The guys in rock and roll are the ones turning it down. And then the rappers end up learning how to do it themselves, and people gravitate because it sounds different than the typical. And
MGK, I saw someone tweet on that note, MGK, his Spotify listeners went up 47% this year. Because he did that album where he worked with Travis Barker.
Yeah, he took a chance. And a lot of his fans didn't honestly know who Travis was, or who Blink-182 was yet. They learned through MGK's, change. And, he's getting a lot of hate for it, of course, which is, again, the problem. But allow it to expand. Let this guy and guys like him and Post Malone, let them breathe new life into the genre and take the genre with you. Ozzy Osbourne got a lot of shit for doing the song with Post Malone from all the metal fans, but I'm like, well,
that's gonna introduce so many Post Malone fans to Ozzy Osbourne though.
And it's a beautiful thing. And honestly, as a person in a band myself, I want that. I'm all for that. So if that's what your favorite artist is doing, they didn't do it because they didn't want to.
Exactly.
They did it because they were excited about it. And as fans, it should be supported. And it's a really funny thing. There's a reason that Benji mentioning that, was it Benji or Joel that said that they approached it with a hip hop mentality?
Joel said that.
Joel said that, and I'm glad that he did, because I've said that to Kate in conversation in the past, where I'm like, I think every band should approach what they do with a more hip hop mentality. There's more go-getter. There's more hunger.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough hunger in rock and roll and punk rock and pop punk. There's a lot of self-deprecation, and it's only just breeding doubt. And the doubt is just attracting doubt from other people. And,
yes.
It's not worth it. Approach things with a little more confidence and a little bit more of you don't have to be rude. You don't have to lie. You don't have to be, you don't have to be like vulgar about it or anything, but like Good Charlotte did it in a way where they were very honest from the beginning.
Oh my God, yeah.
Think about that first record. What's the song?
Waldorf Worldwide. They say we'll be self-made millionaires.
Yeah.
Like, even Festival Song, they talk about making it big. I mean,
yep. They were always talking about it, and they went after it and did it regardless of what anybody else wanted.
Yeah.
And it's not your band at the end of the day. Like, yeah, you're a fan of the band, but it's not your band. If you don't like it and you don't like the approach, without being an asshole, go start your own band and do it the way you would like to see it be done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Simple.
So let's get back to Keep Swingin'. Because I have a couple interviews I want to reference specifically about that song. So Benji did a behind the track video. He did these videos for every song on the record.
Right.
And he said if Kellin's in the studio, a really great song is going to come out. That's just who he is. The message is never give up. We always felt in GC as the underdogs, whether we were being criticized for our decisions or our style, whatever we were doing. And even now, going completely independent and putting our records out ourselves and doing all the things that we're doing now in the music industry, we still feel like underdogs and like we're fighting for a good cause. And both of the twins did an interview with May the Rock Be With You, where just the interviewer mentions that like they were in a slump and they asked the twins for their motivational advice. And Benji just talks about how Keep Swinging is the most motivational song. Like, I love the chorus of that song. Is like when they said we sold out, we keep swinging. To me, that's the most motivational song on the record.
I could totally agree with that. I think so too.
Yeah. Oh, completely. Because it's like people are gonna hate. People are gonna tell you to stop doing it. But like the most punk thing is to just keep doing it. I always feel like whenever someone either tells me that to stop doing something or that they don't think I should keep doing it, whatever it is, I feel so powerful when I keep doing something that someone has either like said no or like, I don't think you can do that.
Oh,
so
yeah,
powerful.
For sure. Yeah, it's great too to also see the look on the face of the person after they see or hear what you've done after they had convinced themselves that you couldn't. And then, you kind of see that jaw drop, like, and then you wait for the moment and they're like, all right, you did it.
Yeah, exactly. One more interview we'll just mention with Upset Magazine. Joel is talking about the backstory of the song, and he says that Kellin is a really good friend of ours that, they had worked on Madness, the Sleeping with Sirens album. And we loved that guy in that band. He's a good songwriter, and we don't really do focused songwriting sessions. With Good Charlotte, it's really just friends and family. And if we're making a record, friends come by and are like, can we work on the record too? And we're always like, of course. So Kellin was in, and he had this riff or whatever, and we just made this song really fast, actually. And he says that he wasn't sure of it at first. And then I listened to it, and I was like, fuck, this is one of my favorite songs on the record. I love his voice. The bridge is my favorite part of the song. He fucking killed the bridge. Yeah,
I love that bridge.
Yeah, agreed. No, it's so huge. And it's nice to hear that. I mean, the people, I think, as we've just been saying, the people that are successful are not the people who box themselves in. So it's nice to hear that, like, Sleeping with Sirens and Good Charlotte may be quote unquote different genres. But even though to like an outsider to the scene, Sleeping with Sirens and Good Charlotte are probably very similar, Like someone who's been to Warped Tour every summer are going to be like, no, those bands are so different. But someone who's like, what's a Warped Tour is going to be like, oh, they both like have eyeliner and wear black.
Oh, they're
like
the same. Rock band. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's the rock band. They played the Warped
and those
Tour.
are the people that don't comment as much also. So you are going to hear more from the snobby kind of know-it-all people, but also from the people who do really have an understanding and just provide an actually valid and positive opinion. But you very rarely hear from the people who are just sort of casual fans. You don't really hear from them as often.
So, Tom, did you have any like specific memories or stories that you want to share about Keep Swingin'?
Really with that one, I just remember hearing it for like the first time when that album came out. I remember I actually bought it and surprised Kate with it, and
amazing.
We were just both like really excited to have a new Good Charlotte record out. it was funny because the album came out around the time we were working on our full-length Makeshift Monster. And I remember the first single was Makeshift Love. And I was like, oh, no. You know, I remember being so a little discouraged by that. And in that same year, Sum 41 had released 13 Voices. And it was like their first album back after Derek was getting sober and everything. And our first single off that same full length was War, and their first single off that album was War. And we were like, what? And then
Good Charlotte had a song called War too.
Yes, and Leech it's not Leeches, right? On
Generation RX. It's Leech. Yeah. It's Leech.
Leech. Yeah, I thought so, because we were working on Old Blues Modern Love and putting out the song Leeches, and then that album came out with the title Leech, and I'm like, man, we're just shadowing each other. Can we just all do a record together?
I mean, you know what, Tom, I think you're speaking it into existence.
I'm trying. I
support it. I endorse it fully. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sell out or anything, but
right,
I would absolutely.
I would sell out if I got the chance. I'd totally sell out.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what selling out would be for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It's just it's nobody. I don't think anyone who calls people out for it knows what it is. But
right.
But yeah, no, it was just so funny, and I just so vividly remember that happening. And you know, I thought that song, specifically about that song, was just such like the perfect touch. It kind of gave me like probably next to Makeshift Love, gave me the most. I want without throwing them back into their past or anything like that. Reminded me a little bit of that first record and how I felt when I heard the click. And, you know, and that was one of my favorite riffs and as a kid. And I remember sitting in my room and teaching myself guitar to learn that riff as well as like an Eve 6 song, I think. And, you know, it was, and that riff specifically, and then, you know, when that it came in, I'm like, oh man, that feels like the first time listening to Good Charlotte, and I thought it was really cool. And then, yeah, of course, like I mentioned before, it was just, you know, hearing that voice come in the second verse, I wasn't ready for it, and I remember at the time being like, I'm not really sure what to make of that just yet. And then over time, I'm like, man, I can't stop singing it, and I can't stop singing the bridge, and you know, really cool things like that. It was just it was a nice little throwback for fans like us, but it was also a new thing too that none of us saw coming, I think, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember being like really happy hearing that song. It just put me in a good mood immediately, and it has a very triumphant kind of feel to it, lyrically and in the music.
Yeah. One thing I like to mention is other songs in their catalog it kind of relates to. I Just Want to Live comes to mind, like that line where they say, life's out to the rich and famous, your first hit, aren't you ashamed of the life you're living.
God, I love that. Yeah, it was so cool when they did that.
Oh, that was so great. That's probably the most clear kind of relation I can feel. I mean, you could maybe say some of Good Morning Revival, like thematically, but
yeah. Again, that hip hop approach was in there. You know, Eminem would pull that type of stuff too. I think he does it on Rap God, where he sort of says, he blatantly mentions the first Marshall Mathers LP and you know, Good Charlotte. I've never heard another band, like I've never heard Green Day on American Idiot mention Dookie, you know?
Right.
So like it was very interesting. Again, doing something else that was different and interesting. Like, oh wow, like very conscious trajectory here. Not
very much a thing that I feel like hip hop artists do all the time.
100%. Yeah. And I think growing up being such a fan of punk rock and hip hop probably is like my top two favorite genres. Like that really hit me. You know, I remember catching that relation, and I think that's why amongst other people at my age group and a couple of the kids that were a few grades older than me that would kind of mock me and my friends for being into Good Charlotte, I think that's why we understood it more than they did, because we were looking at everything and not just punk rock, you know?
Yeah.
So, and they were too, very open minds, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, this has been going on a while, but I do have like a few more things we're going to get into.
Yeah, sure.
So there is a music video for this song. It's a montage. It's some like 2016 footage, some 2017, definitely a lot of Warped Tour stuff. It was released June 2017, coinciding with some festivals. There's some great moments of Kellin and some backstage and a lot of really sweet fan interactions, which just melt my heart. My
great with their fans.
Favorite was the guy that commented saying that at 2 minutes and 45 seconds, that is me and my wife on our honeymoon. That
cool.
You guys signed the shirt. Amazing. Goals.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Literal goals. I love it so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Any comments on the video, Tom?
You know what's funny is I actually was totally unaware that there was a video for it. I remember seeing a video with like a lot of montage stuff being promoted on Instagram, and I thought it was literally just a quick
just montage
update on Instagram, because I remember it not linking to anything and me looking for it, because I love the montage videos. I love
same
behind the scenes type stuff, the non contrived storyline of a video. I mean, I love telling a good story, but I really love seeing what the artists are like when it's not acting, when it's not portraying a character for a video and having to play into an effect or a setup or whatever. And I remember looking for more and I could not find it, and I was just like, oh, it must have just been a cool little like, hi guys, you know, they do that a lot too, where they'll just post something pretty cool real quick and just be like, hey, we're here. You know,
right, we're here, we exist.
Yeah, we'll get you guys some new music soon, but for now we're just chilling with our kids. You know, like they're so good about it because they can do whatever they want, you know. So that's literally the extent of it. I wasn't aware that there was deeper content in the video, but that is so cool, man. Like seeing that stuff with how you can have an effect on somebody's life, and now this married couple.
Oh my God.
Like that was our honeymoon. Like you were a part of their honeymoon. Like what an
honor.
It's got to feel like such an honor.
Yeah. Let's go through some reviews. People were like split on this. So I'll try to read. I have a bunch. I probably won't read them all, but we'll read some positive reviews and then some not so positive reviews, as we always do. It would not be a Good Charlotte critical analysis without the negative reviews. New Noise Magazine gave the album a 4.5 out of 5, and they said that tracks like 40 Ounce Dream, Life Can't Get Much Better, Keep Swinging, and Cars Full of People are just about perfect and contagious as hell. Expect to have them set on replay whenever they come into your listening rotation. I'll tell you now.
I agree with that. 1000%. I did the same thing. I could not stop listening to 40 Ounce Dream when I first heard it. It was on all day long. Yeah.
We Plug Good Music really appreciated like the end of the song. They said the closing moments are beautiful and earnest. There appears to be even some strings added to the end too. Over the top, yes, but definitely at least a little majestic.
That's funny. I wouldn't personally call it over the top. I thought it was a nice touch the way they ended it. I mean, to me, it lends itself to a really cool live transition. They could go into anything they want out of that one, and it'd be an amazing. You could imagine the feeling. It'd be what song comes next, you know?
Yeah. Rock Sound said that it was vintage Good Charlotte and that it provides a fitting soundtrack as the summer months come into view. Awesome. Yeah.
That's a good one. I totally agree.
Prelude Press had a really sweet review just talking about how the album feels like growing up, but thankfully growing up doesn't always have to mean letting go of the things you love.
Yes.
And they said that Keep Swingin' is easily a high point on Youth Authority.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of low points on that record, but but it's definitely a high point. And I thought adding the strings was nice. It definitely, again, to go back to that, it was nothing that I felt like I haven't heard them try to do before. You know, Chronicles had strings and synths and interesting stuff all over it. I think a lot of times people do forget that there are older records where artists did make an attempt at something early on and then perfected it later. And you might just be noticing it more now, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's cool, though. It's a good review.
Yeah. Very, 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 like, in-depth. I appreciated that. Maria Sherman reviewed the record for Spin, giving it a 6 out of 10, saying that the weakest moments on Youth Authority are found on the slower songs. She said regarding the two collaborations that Reason to Stay is superior. She said Reason is the superior of the two collaborations on the record, the other being a sentimental Keep Swinging with Sleeping with Sirens heartthrob Kellin Quinn, but that might just be our cowbell bias talking.
That's funny.
Let's read some not so nice reviews. There's one from Sputnik Music that gave the album a 1.5 out of 5. And Sputnik has done reviews on a couple Good Charlotte records, and I think they've all been like 1.5 out of 5.
It's like at that point, why even do the review anymore?
Well, and I'm just like, are all of the records 1.5 out of 5, or did you just feel like you couldn't give it any lower of a rating? Like,
right.
I don't know. But this person summarized their review as the Chronicles of Mid-30s Drama, which, like, okay, fair. And just listed pros and cons, and under cons, they just said Kellin Quinn's featured vocals and Keep Swingin' are annoying. Which, like, look, like you and I have been we're going on about how much we love Kellin's voice. Obviously, a lot of people feel similarly. They're a very successful band. But yeah, not everyone is going to like Kellin's voice.
It's very different. It's a little jarring at first, and I can see why. I mean, this person probably, and I really like, I would hate to be anything other than honest about it, because, you know, it's like when I first heard it, I wasn't sure either. Like I said before, I was like, I don't know what to make of this yet. Like I said, it almost sounds inhuman. There's a point of it in terms of, like, I think, like, the mix, and like on the mixing side, it's almost like it sounds like it's not, it almost doesn't sound real, you know. But as you really keep listening, you're like, man, like, if this wasn't the second verse though, if he wasn't singing that, and if he didn't do the bridge, I don't know if I would be as glued to it still today. And you know, usually I think a lot of people who review tracks or an album, you know, track by track, probably only listened, you know, to the song and then did a review. And they might have listened to it a few times, but like didn't give it the time it needs to sink in. And I think a lot of the best stuff comes from stuff that doesn't hit you right away. It's always the stuff that later on you're like, oh wow, this is great, and you can't stop listening.
Like, I will say, like, I think my fault in terms of, like, because in terms of writing, my thing was more so like maybe show reviews, writing about a show, or news. My big thing with writing was always interviews.
Right.
But like where I felt I always faulted in writing album reviews is like listening to the album too many times and taking too much time.
Okay, yeah.
Because then it's like you just start to think so much about it, and you're not giving like an initial kind of reaction. And I think there's definitely a skill in like being able to make good judgments quickly in terms of like review. It's a skill for sure.
Oh yeah.
And depending on, you know, what kind of, at what level you're writing, it might be like, oh, like even with Substream, we would have people who had 24 hours to write an album review.
Right. Yeah. And that's not a whole lot of time to, for anybody, I think, to fully digest and really understand a record and appreciate it, or really make sure you don't appreciate it. I think everything kind of takes a little time with that, especially, you know, you got to think like how much time went in for the artist to create that, and you only have 24 hours to listen to that entire thing, which is months and months and months of work for these guys, and you go and have a negative review after only listening once, you know. So it's kind of like you know, like how do you make it fair enough to actually be an assessment that should be taken seriously, or should be something that either encourages or deters somebody from buying it? Yeah,
that's a good question. Well, let's read, as our last kind of segment, let's read some comments on the music video, because I like reading what fans have said.
Yeah, it's always fun.
There was a lot of love for Kellin. JC17 said Kellin's got one of the purest, most unique voices in the industry. And Cherry Ramon says, not a big fan of XWS music, but I have to admit, Kellin has one of the best voices in the music industry. The Becks 10 10169 said, honestly, thought it was a female singing. I was so confused. Reminds me of when I first listened to Coheed and Cambria. Ha.
Awesome. That's actually a great
That's a great compliment.
comparison. I would have never actually thought that. Yeah, wow. I can see that. He could probably sing some Coheed really well, actually. It's very similar.
Oh my God, yeah. There were a couple comments like kind of calling out the hate against Kellin.
Mm-hmm.
But what was weird was I didn't see any comments on this hating against Kellin. Like, I scrolled through a whole bunch of comments on this video, and I didn't really see anyone saying that, like, they hated Kellin's voice or they didn't like it. Like, it was pretty much people saying, like, one person said that they weren't a Good Charlotte fan, but they listened to the song because of Kellin. And a bunch of people saying that this still sounds like Good Charlotte.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe comments got deleted. Who knows?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. But I think that's cool. I think that's, again, a great thing, too, for Good Charlotte is they've remained, again, what a great album to run with the title Youth Authority. I mean, they've really managed to stay in touch and not lose touch with with the youth. And, like, I still see kids that are, like, for instance, Kate's little brother is about the age I was when I got into Good Charlotte and was really discovering my style of music that I liked. And Good Charlotte really helped me make that decision. Like, this is what I like. This is the sound I want. This is what I hope my guitars come out sounding like, and things like that. As like a little kid, trying to figure out everything from the clothes you wear to the music you're interested in. Like, you're trying to find an identity. And he's still now doing the same thing. Like, he'll still start singing to Good Charlotte, and it'll be new or old Good Charlotte. And I think that there's young kids too that are brand new to music in general and finding a scene through Sleeping with Sirens, and now falling in love with Good Charlotte because of that. And they're finding Sleeping with Sirens thanks to Sleeping with Sirens partnership with Good Charlotte, and because they're on MDDN, so it's clearly a conscious team effort. And it's amazing to see that. Music should work that way. Everybody should be able to help carry one another to the finish line. It's way too hard of a game to win by yourself, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to this final question. Did Good Charlotte sell out?
No. My answer is no. To me, Good Charlotte did exactly what they wanted to do. They did exactly what they said they would do. They stuck to it. They continue to stick to it.
Right. Like, what's the selling out in that?
Or what's the selling out? They're happy. I think, for one, if you're a musician, the term sell out, this is for bands on, I think, all levels, specifically like on a local level where there's like a unwarranted ego. I think you should.
I'm just laughing because I know exactly like what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, and there's the sellout term gets thrown around a lot, and get it out of your vocabulary if you really mean what you're doing, because that's a really toxic, negative mentality, and the only person you're hurting is yourself and your own band. Secondly, I think other people who use the term sellout, they're missing the point. Bands have to make money in order to stay above water and continue doing what they do. A lot of bands are probably not going to see the end of this year due to the COVID, and a lot of it does have a lot to do with people not allowing those bands to grow because they kept them too near and dear to themselves and their core friend group. And the whole sellout concept, man, it's, if you're going to use it, the only way I can see potentially making sense is you're a sellout if you go against what you truly love and believe in just because you want to be rich and famous. Like, if you enjoy what you're doing and that stuff comes to you, awesome. But, if you're solely doing things for that and then you fall flat on your face, now you're not only broke and unknown, but you also don't even have a record you can look back on and live with and be proud of. So now you have nothing. So it's like, think a little deeper, I think, before throwing that stuff out there on people. And with Good Charlotte, no, man, like they're so true to themselves and honest, and they have been, from the press to how they treat their fans, to the choices they make musically, to going independent. You know, like, they are their own label now and their own managers now. It's awesome. And that's a task not a lot of bands are willing to take on, even though, you know, that is what you have to do in order to be successful. There's not a band on this planet that is as successful as a band like Good Charlotte, who just solely relies on a record label to do all the work. It's like, you got to be your own industry first, and then let the other people come to you. And anyone who, you know, most people just don't know, you know, and it's okay if you don't know, but it's also probably a wise choice to not speak negatively about things you don't understand. So yeah, it's Good Charlotte didn't sell out, and they're still great, and Keep Swinging is an awesome song. I love it.
Yeah. Amazing. Tom, I mean, you kind of addressed this, but how has this song held up for you over time?
It's gotten better to me, to be honest. It's still, I honestly, actually, when we get done with this, I'm probably going to go listen to it, because I haven't actually listened to it in a couple days. And, you know, I've got it on playlists, and I'm not really always on there making playlists, like on Spotify and stuff like that. And that's a song I make sure I add. You know, it's just one of my favorite ones. And yeah, it really has. It's just continuously getting better every time I hear it. And yeah, I notice something different every time. So that speaks to the production and you know, the overall songwriting is just, you always kind of pick up on something new and different, and something you might not have admired or appreciated before, such as Kellin's feature or whatever, you probably will appreciate now if you go back and listen. So yeah, it just keeps getting better to me. I love the song, and the more we've dug into it, I think I have an even deeper respect.
Yeah.
Know? The more you talk about it, it just makes it even better.
That's something special about that, right? Like that
talking
about it more makes it better instead of like ruining it.
Oh yeah, and I would rather have, you know, this conversation about, you know, something constantly getting better and progressing, and the good and the bad of a certain thing, you know, because that's kind of what goes into, in my opinion, really good music. Rather than kind of joining the party of just trash talking somebody like MGK, or trash talking Good Charlotte for, you know, having Liberty spikes but not sounding exactly like Rancid. It's just sort of, who cares? You know, is the music good?
Right.
Awesome. You know, are they happy with how they look? Cool, because that's really none of your business. If you don't like it, don't do it. So yeah, I love it. And yeah, it's one of those songs. They like I said, it's the middle finger band. Without having to say it. They don't have to say it. It's just, it's there. And like you said, because they keep going, they're still here. And the fact that they're still here is enough of a statement. Yeah.
Well, what has Good Charlotte been to you over the years, and how has that changed?
You know, it really, honestly, it hasn't. It's just it's if anything, it's kind of pushed me further and encouraged me more to really lean into independence as a musician and as a writer, and just a creative person, I guess. Or I think everybody's creative, just not everybody allows themselves to showcase it. But to do that a little bit more fearlessly than ever before. Yeah. But that's who they always were to me. You know, I didn't care if I got made fun of because I wore black every single day, or because my hair looked funny, or because I was in a band before it was a cool thing to be in a band, and things like that. You know, they were always sort of, I would say, like, freedom and individuality. And the only way it's really changed is it's, you know, I you know, you feel more a part of something, I think, because I'm also now, as I grow up, I continue to listen to new music and adapt new artists and try to give everybody a chance. And you see them doing the exact same thing, and I'm sure it's guys like them, and seeing Tim Armstrong from Rancid do that for Good Charlotte, you know, that stuff sticks with you, I think, when you witness it as a kid. And yeah, that's really how they influence me, almost more than they do on the music side. It's more so how they carry themselves, really.
Yeah. Amazing. Tom, this has been so great.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. Do you have any last words about Keep Swingin', about Good Charlotte, about 18th and Addison, or about yourself?
No. I mean, just really, I mean, people should just if you don't like the song, give it another chance. Just, you know, give music a chance, really, like, give new music a chance, and more than just one listen. before you go posting about it and disparage somebody's hard work, because no matter the height of the band, it does affect everybody, and how we all choose to handle it, everybody. So it's always different, but it still has its effects. And I think after a year like 2020, I think it's more important, instead of bashing people, we should probably just give all different styles a chance. If you're in a rock band, give that local rapper who wants a guy in a rock band to write him some music or a hook or whatever, try it. Don't turn it down just because you don't, you think that that's not rock and roll, because the most rock and roll thing you can do is do that. And, if you're into whatever else, try to find that commonality between all the music, because Good Charlotte has been trying to tell you about it for years. And, and they're still going, they're still fighting to make sure you see the relationship between punk and hip hop and pop and all of that. So there's something good in everything if you look hard enough, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As for like my own music, I guess, like at the 18th and Addison, we're really just writing a ton right now and collaborating with some really amazing artists. We'll have you said this is airing in 2021.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, it will either have already been out or it's on the way. If you just check our social media, we always update and keep things as up to date as possible on there. But we're working on a song in collaboration with Fred Mascherino of Taking Back Sunday and Color Fred. Yeah, and we're having a really good time with it. And, again, that collaboration and the encouragement of rock bands, punk rock rooted bands doing features and collabs in that hip hop mentality, like having a good time and accepting artists and to kind of come in. It's not an exclusive club. It's an open door for creative people. And this is probably one of the most exciting things I think we've done in the last few years. So we're very excited to release that, but doing as much as we can during, what we can coming out of 2020. That's for sure. It has not been easy, especially for a smaller working band like us, but we're trying our best. And in the meantime, hopefully people enjoy what's already up and join us on TikTok, watch us pour coffee all over ourselves. Making a fool of ourselves in front of the neighbors.
Tom, thank you so much. Last question. So I do a Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist,
cool.
Where I just get recommendations from our guests. So what's something you've been listening to that you want to share with the class?
Okay. Are we going with anything?
Anything that's not Good Charlotte or your own band.
Cool. So lately I have been listening to a ton of, let me find it. Okay. There's this song and I'm driving Kate crazy with it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to choose a song that Kate and I both equally love. It's called Desire by Meg Myers.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah. Isn't she awesome?
Oh, she's so great.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, if you want to throw that one on there, Desire by Meg Myers. I've been hooked on that for a while now, and now Kate's obsessed too. So yeah, it's awesome.
Amazing. Tom, thank you so much. Listeners, I'll throw links to catch up with 18th and Addison in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Molly Hudelson. I've been your host. You can follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, Pod, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, MHUDELSON, on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you all for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and tell all your friends.